Hey guys, welcome back to STRC. Got another review video today for my Traxxas Slash 2-wheel drive race build series. This is upgrade number 11, and if you saw the preview video, basically there's a few different carbon fiber pieces and some STRC hinge pins that I'm going to be reviewing. So right off the bat, first thing is basically the carbon fiber shock tower braces from Proline. These fit the ProTrack shock towers only. They will not fit the stock shock towers. But the reason I got them was basically I found out there's quite a bit of flex in the stock shock towers. And so what these do are basically just mount up straight onto the back of the shock towers. I basically put 4 bolts on the 4 corners. You do need a couple little cap head screws to use. They do not come in the package, but they mount right on. The front was a little bit difficult, not difficult, but they did have to do some trimming on the shock tower and the bottoms of these things, because basically, the shock tower kind of would, actually had to cut half those holes you can see kind of on the bottom there, just to get this thing to mount up correctly without basically overlapping with the brace there. So not a big deal, but a little bit of modification you have to do. And then on the rears, they just bolt right on. They basically slip in between the stock shock tower and then basically this body mount here. So they add probably a couple of millimeters of thickness. No modification necessary, although I do kind of feel like these cap head screws are a little bit short now. You may want to get a little bit longer cap head screws to basically mount this thing on. And then I also put little button heads on the corners, basically in the holes that I was not mounting the shocks actually on. So yeah, installation was not very complicated. Overall, they actually did improve the performance quite a bit. I was a little surprised, honestly. I wasn't expecting much of a performance improvement, but actually what they added was more responsiveness. The chassis feels quite a bit stiffer, less flex, and so the truck is more responsive. It kind of gets through those S's and kind of reacts to direction changes a little bit quicker. I also found that basically the truck is a little more precise, a little more manageable to kind of get it running exactly the same lap after lap after lap. So overall, I did find the performance actually was shockingly a lot better than I expected, and can definitely recommend the upgrade. For sure, the front shock tower has the most flex. Now you can see basically there's just very little flex. There's a little bit still. You can still turn it a little bit, but not much at all. And the rear wasn't that bad before, but it's even stiffer now. So, small improvement in the rear, but a massive improvement in the front end. So, overall, definitely like the product. The only downsides really are that the rear shock tower is a little bit hard now to get to some of those shock tower bolts that are there on the bottom. So basically, these bolts here that bolt straight into the transmission are kind of hard to get at now. You kind of have to use basically a ball tip, hex driver, or when you want to get at those, obviously you have to remove the bumper and then the body mounts, and then you can try to get to those. But with this carbon fiber brace in the way, it's kind of hard to get at it from the top. So you probably want to remove those 2 screws as well that are holding it on after you remove this thing. So a little bit of an inconvenience thing, nothing major, but a little bit harder than before. So overall, yeah, pretty happy with those shock towers and can definitely recommend them. Now the next carbon fiber piece I was looking to install was actually this. The J Concepts Monroe strap. It was on sale for $5, but I actually ended up not mounting it, and you can kind of see in my truck I'm not using it. And so what happened? Well, I actually found another part that was working a little better, and so what I mounted up was basically this Team Associated part number 92047, and it is a B64 battery mount. So I actually happen to have a extra one of these lying around. Don't ask me why, it's kind of a long story, but I did have extra B64 battery mount, and I found that it actually bolts right on. So it's held in place by 2 basically little ball studs here, and the front one actually fits right over the stock body mount ball stud, just perfectly fine. So you can reuse that part, and then it's exactly the right length to be able to fit a shorty battery in here. And so all you got to do is basically drill 3 holes through the chassis, and then I put some basically flathead screws through there, M3 screws, and then they just thread right into the rear mount here. and then they seem pretty darn secure. So quick tip on how you actually measure it out. I would just throw the battery in there, and then place the rear mount here right behind it, with the strap and everything in place. And I actually drilled straight through the normal threaded holes, so I actually can access them from the top. And that way I could basically stick a little drill bit, like a 2mm drill bit or so, straight down, and basically mark the 2 little spots on where I actually want to mount those 2 outside screws. So once you've marked them in the chassis, then you can drill them straight through. And then I actually used a 1/4" drill bit basically to kind of countersink those holes, make them so that when I put those screws in, they're nice and flush, basically beveled inside. And then once those 2 are in place, I just kind of eyeballed it and then just drilled the middle one and did the same thing. So yeah, all 3 screws are holding that mount in, quite securely. I'm not sure you absolutely need to have the middle one, but I did just to be extra safe, so that thing's not going anywhere. And then you put the flathead screws in underneath, obviously, and I'm also using a 1.5mm washer for the center screw, because there's kind of a gap here underneath that center screw hole, and that just basically takes up the space, so there's no gap there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for how you mount the B64 battery strap in there. And then, so in addition to obviously being kind of a nice quick little battery strap, this thing's actually pretty tricky. You just pop off the body mount, and then this thing flips up, and you can actually swivels around, and you can actually remove it if you want. And then it's sort of toolless, right? You just throw it back on, and then you got your battery back in place. So the other nice thing with this battery strap is it actually freed up a bunch of space behind the battery. So I was actually able to mount my ESC back here. So normally the ESC mounts here on the side, basically on this kind of raised portion, and throwing it down there basically drops the height of that ESC, drops that weight by probably a good, I don't know, 5-10 millimeters or so, and also gets all the electronics basically nice and in line through the center of your vehicle. So no more stuff here on the sides. I just have my receiver and a couple of weights basically to balance out the weight left and right. But overall, all the heavy stuff is straight down the middle of this truck. And I actually noticed that actually helped the truck drive a little better. Less roll overall. Normally if you got weight on the sides, it kind of makes the truck kind of shift left and right as you kind of go through the corners. But with its center line, it doesn't roll quite as much, which is nice. And the other kind of neat little benefit was that I noticed when I crashed the truck and I flipped over, basically on its lid, basically on its roof, it would tend to kind of roll over and drop back onto all 4 wheels pretty much most of the time. And I think it's basically because all that weight is really down low on the vehicle. It's kind of bottom heavy, so it tends to roll back on its wheels a lot more than before. So kind of nice little added bonus. So yeah, something to look into. The part's really cheap. It's like $7. And compared to all the other funky battery straps out there, it actually had some actual benefit as opposed to just looking nice. And they also make carbon fiber versions of this battery strap if for some reason you want a cool looking battery strap. So neat little thing. I don't think I've ever seen anyone else do that, but hopefully that helps you out and something I would recommend trying out. And so the last part I'm reviewing is basically the STRC hinge pins. And if you saw my preview video, basically these right hand screws are the ones that kind of backing out, and I thought this front outer one could not be reversed. So actually if you take the hinge pins and throw them in from the other side, that prevents them from backing out. And I did it to the rears, but I didn't do it to the front. But it actually turns out you can do it to the front as well. So if you don't want to buy these hinge pins, you don't have to. But the thing I noticed actually when I pulled basically all the hinge pins out of my truck was that most of them were actually bent. Out of the 8 hinge pins, I think like 6 of them were bent, and you can tell they're bent because they don't slide in and out very well. So I replaced them all with these STRC hinge pins, which obviously are hardened steel. They should be a lot more durable. Stock ones are kind of this soft cast steel, I guess. I don't know. They're pretty soft metal and tend to bend. So hopefully these will hold up a little bit better. So far they've been pretty good. All of them I basically mounted with the cap head on the front and the nut on the rear, except basically these rear ones. I reversed them basically so that I can remove these hinge pins without pulling out the whole transmission. Normally the cap head's on the front, and there's no way to get a tool out of them to basically unthread them, so you have to pop off the whole transmission, which is like 17 bolts or so. before you can actually remove those hinge pins. Now, if you break an arm or whatever and you need to change the arm, actually you just basically get at them without removing it at all. So just a quick little tip. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with those hinge pins for $10. Which I'm not sure that's the normal price, but that's the price I paid. I think they're usually about $16, but I paid 10 for mine for whatever reason. It was a little cheaper on Tower. I think it's a good investment. So, anyways, that's pretty much it for upgrade number 11 in my Traxxas Slash build series. I hope you liked it. Hope you found something interesting and useful. Throw down a comment. Please like and subscribe as always. I'm not sure what else I'm going to do next for this truck. If you have any ideas you think that will help the performance, throw them down below, and I'd love to hear them because I'm kind of running out of ideas, and this thing's running really, really, really good. I mean, seriously, every time I go to the track, people are just shocked that I'm, out there running a Slash that's keeping up with their buggies or their short course 4x4s or whatever, and they're just like, wow, that's like the best looking Slash I've ever seen. And not to be unhumble, but I do think this truck is running really, really well. So anyways, thanks for watching, and look for more reviews and videos soon. Take care, guys.